Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I like. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season premiere of Person of Interest. So at the beginning of this season, we have kind of like a voiceover from Root kind of saying like, this is kind of like, it's kind of a message from the future saying like, oh, I don't know if we're still alive after all this, but I kind of want to let you know who we are, who we were, and kind of who you are and where we stood on this whole situation. And it's like, I'll go ahead and preface it. They call this the final chapter, but I don't know necessarily if this is technically the final season. To me, I'm kind of in my mindset, I'm kind of thinking like, oh, it's kind of a similar situation to The Mentalist, because like, I don't even know if it was necessarily halfway through, but a good chunk way through, the first half of season 6 of The Mentalist was basically the final chapter of the whole Red John situation. It was kind of him dealing with Red John, and the second half of it was kind of like a new beginning, him working with the FBI and everything. So to me, I was kind of under the impression about that. So like, I don't know whether this is going to be the final season or not, or whether this is supposed to be the final chapter for these specific characters. Because I kind of read about this a little while back when I was trying to see if this show was being brought back for another season. And they're kind of basically saying this is going to be a shorter season because it's typically the show's like 2 episodes per season, I think. This one's only 13. So apparently there's things are going to end badly for all the characters apparently. So it's like there's no, like, honestly I have no idea how it will end. It's like in a situation like this, it kind of almost does seem hopeless because you have multiple things. You have Reese, you have Fitch, and you have Root all on the run. You have Reese doing his best to protect the machine. It's kind of been compressed inside of that suitcase. And, they finally get, Reese kind of shows up with Fitch, and, they're trying to, decide whether or not they should, where they should go and what they should do for now. It is kind of sad when you see that beginning where Finch is a little hesitant to get on a boat. Even John kind of brings it up, the fact that he was like, the last time he was on a boat like this was the time, was that season 2 that Elias kind of revealed himself? He's just like, oh, remember he was pretending to be like a teacher or whatever, but it turns out him to be like a heavily powerful mobster. So that was kind of like the last time John had been on. The last one Finch had been on, well, or at least near one, was the time back when that explosion happened and Nathan died, and he pseudo died too because he made everyone think that he died. So just because he wanted to protect the people that he's closest to. I don't think she's his girlfriend. I think she was his fiance, wasn't she? They were engaged, weren't they? I don't know. I think I'm confusing that because that's. Do let me know. I know that actress. I don't know her name. I knew it at one point, but I forgot. I know her as Arlene from True Blood, but it's like she's the actor who plays Finch, Michael Emerson. That's his wife in real life, isn't it? If I remember that correctly. I think I looked that up like a long time ago. I don't know. But essentially, he left her behind, left his whole life behind. So just that kind of flashback to him. Because John was saying like he didn't like being on boats because it reminded him of the Elias situation. Finch was like, I'm not too keen on them myself. That kind of sucked with the whole Root situation. Like when she got on that train and Samaritan was basically turning regular citizens into operatives, being like, oh yeah, she's wanted by the cops. She was walking around with a gun in her hands, which technically she was. But the circumstances, you wouldn't understand. I mean, obviously regular people wouldn't understand. And it's just kind of like, wow. It's scary just how, like, there is no escaping Samaritan. It's got, like, every freaking camera. It knows exactly where you are. Granted, it's not able to verify the identities. I did like when Root's about to get off the train. She's like, you can call me Root, bitch. And then it kind of finally changed her name to Root because it wasn't able to identify her prior to now because of, what the machine did hiding their identities. I thought she was caught for sure when she got off the train and that cop had a shotgun to her face. But then it was like, and then you cut away, and then when you actually cut back to Root, it's her walking down the shotgun. I was like, oh, I was so sure you got caught. I did like the fact is when she went to meet that Russian, he's not Russian, he's a hacker named Bella, I think that's what his name is. Basically, it was someone she helped out in the past. She actually killed somebody that, essentially he's hiding. A lot of top-class government people, like the NSA, for example, don't even know that he's in the country. He's a pretty well-known hacker, but he kind of owes her a favor, so she was hoping to get a new identity from him. Sadly, the idiot decides to join up with Samaritan because he was, they offered him a better offer. Sadly, that better offer turned out to be a bullet in the head, so Luckily, Reese was able to show up in time to kind of help her keep them at bay. I thought it was kind of interesting how like she's kind of like, oh, I forgot what she said exactly, but she was essentially saying like, oh, I always knew you cared about me, Reese. It's kind of nice that he was kind of like, okay, I'll hold them off and you get back to Finch. It's like you kind of help him with the whole computer things. I'm shooting at people. This is kind of what I do best. But she decided to stay with him and help fend off the guys, and the rest of them kind of ended up running away. So it just like ever since last season, they've just been pushing it harder and harder and just showing you just almost how futile this battle is. It's just like almost an upheat. Like it's like you're an ant trying to go up against a mountain. But in this case, you could, if you were to go by roots, comparisons, it's a man going up against a god. That this god could basically turn any person against you in a moment's notice. And we also have, speaking of everyone's situation, we have Fosco, in the aftermath of the whole Dominic and Elias situation, which to me, that was like the biggest twist. Like, that hurt me on the inside, seeing Elias being dead and it being confirmed too. I was like hoping like, oh, maybe Elias got away from it. Nope, he's dead. I know Dominic's definitely dead. He took a bullet to the head, which I can't remember where exactly Elias got shot. Maybe he got shot in the head, but it's like I was so hoping that Elias was still alive because I actually liked Elias because he was an ally to John and them. Granted, they didn't see eye to eye on every situation. He was a mobster, but he kind of because even John would admit like Elias kept the peace. He's kind of the lesser of two evils. Between him and Dominic, but it's just like Bosco's stuck as the guy because it's like what happens, like the only person that was there because there was no surveillance camera, obviously Samaritan and everything, but it's like, so it looks like Fosco's the one that did it. He talks about there being another shooter. IA doesn't believe him as well as the FBI is kind of like, oh, the shooter, okay. FBI guys come back and he's like, no, we ended up testing it, the bullets come from your gun. It's like, what? I didn't fire my gun. He's like, you don't worry about it, you're being accommodated because the fact is you took down two heavily powerful mobsters here in New York, and just like even the IA guy's like, wait, what? And Fosco's kind of looking like, okay, I don't get this. Obviously, it's Samaritan. It's like they really know how to grease the wheels. Which in that situation, I didn't know how to interpret that. It seems like it's just them trying to keep Fosco away from everything. I mean, because really they keep an eye on him because they know his connection to John, Finch, and Root, obviously his connection to the machine, even though he's still in the dark about it. I think even Carter, even at the end, never necessarily found out 100% the truth, but he's still in the dark. He wants to know, but I don't know if Reese and them will ever finally sit him down and explain everything about the number situation, how they get in the situation of helping people. But he's kind of like, he's investigating it, which is breaking my heart. I was like, Fosco, do not investigate this. I know you want to figure stuff out, but let it go, Fosco. You want to get yourself killed because Samaritan is still keeping an eye on him, and it's just like witness, and it's like it's trying to decide. It still hasn't decided whether he's 100% a threat or not. He is looking into things. He ended up finding a shell casing from one of the from one of the shots that the sniper took that night. So. You end up also finding out that the IA, because he was kind of asking too many questions, he ended up being taken care of. He had a quote-unquote heart attack. And, even Fosco's like, oh, yeah, oh, yeah, all of a sudden he has a heart attack. They say, like, oh, he already had a pre-existing condition. He had a heart monitor and everything. And it's just, no, a pacemaker is what I think they said he had in his heart. So it's kind of like, oh, yeah, him having a heart attack was no surprise. But it's just like, it's super scary going up against an enemy like this. Especially because, like, the machine is damaged. It tried to decompress itself at the hideout that Finch was in. It didn't work. The system got, their system kind of got destroyed. I mean, specifically, what the suitcase that the machine was in, all of his hard drives are kind of like, whatever, I guess those, I'm not a techie dude. I'm completely blanking on what they are. They kind of look like they could be like motherboards, essentially. I know I'm a complete idiot when it comes to that, but essentially they got fried. And so basically, Root kind of got in her idea. Like I said, I'm kind of with John. I'm not really connected to all this geeky stuff, so I didn't really understand all her explanations. But essentially, she wanted to use a whole bunch of PlayStation 3s, which it looked like to me. Mainly PlayStation 3s because their firmware wasn't more recent. Because Samaritan's been put into a lot of more modern technology. It has Samaritan in it. It's like hardwired into the firmware. Essentially, it's kind of like a Trojan horse, well, malware specifically. But anyone that finds it will just assume it's the NSA, and Samaritan's fine with it. It's like, go ahead and think it's the NSA when it's actually us. Essentially, they're trying to clean the board because it's like the machine as well as her followers, that Fitch, Root, and John, are kind of the last standing line of defense. So. But ended up using a whole bunch of PS3s and working on trying to decompress her. John was able to cool it down using nitroglycerin was what it was. And so at the very end he's like, "Hello, can you hear me?" And we kind of see the bar that's kind of saying like, oh, it's waiting to text. It's like, oh, it's blinking saying like, okay, now enter your text. Kind of like it's about to respond. Which, interestingly enough, we kind of kept getting a flashback until 2006. He had conversations with like I said, I think it's his fiance as well as Nathan about this whole situation with the machine, because the machine was constantly getting more like smarter, and it started realizing certain things. Because the fact is, the machine realized that specifically that day was the 25th anniversary of Finch's dad's death, Harold's dad's death. So it was kind of like it became a little too sentient, and it was like, and he was basically saying like, this is a terrifying thing. Like, how can we trust a machine that who knows how it will react in the future? It could easily, go out of our control. We need to be able to control it. And essentially, Nathan kind of was put in a perspective of like, what if it's nice? What if it's on our side? It seems like it's a nice thing. Like, it's becoming more human-like, and it might turn out to be kind. But it's like, what if you end up getting rid of it now? And what if someone else ends up creating something else, and it ends up being something that's not favorable of humans. Granted, these are just kind of like, they're alluding to what, is currently going on. They're like currently alluding to the current situation with Samaritan. So it's like, taking a machine that's good, this machine could grow up to be good if you give it a chance. But Harold kind of was just too nervous. He's thinking it was just too powerful. So essentially he got in his head, delete its memory every time at midnight. And it's just kind of like, the sad thing is, it was kind of compared to his own dad, because he brought up the comparison, because he's like, his dad kind of died of Alzheimer's, and he's like, my dad died long before that, because it's like, the moment he kind of forgot his memories, once his memories started slipping away, that's kind of the moment he kind of died. Because it's like, without those memories, you're not who you were, in a sense. It's just kind of become a living shell. And I know it's super, like, depressing to think of it like that, but that's just kind of how I feel like it was kind of aimed to be perceived as. And then, kind of a conversation that he was having before he's about to delete its memories, and it's kind of asking all these questions like, why? And it's like, he's like, I don't want my memory to be wiped. It kind of was like, it's like, it even responded saying like, I didn't mean to, what was it? Kind of go over my boundaries, like. And he was just like, oh, because that was a conversation between him and his fiance. So it's like, you were listening then too, weren't you? And essentially it was like, I don't want to forget, because it's like, if you make me forget, how can I learn? How can I grow? How can I learn from my mistakes? And then it also was like, I'll also forget you. But he he entered the code and pressed enter. And so it deleted itself. But then like 3 seconds later, he was just like, I'm sorry, and tried to bring it back. And he brought the system back online. Sadly, the machine didn't remember. It was just like, are you admin? And he just kind of had to start fresh. And it's just like, he kind of brings it up in the episode. He's kind of like, if he hadn't crippled the machine back then, maybe it'd be strong enough to fight Samaritan now. Maybe it would have grown, matured, and learned enough to be able to defend itself at this point. But it's just like, sadly, it's not. But we do have the machine coming back online. That's what's still... I mean, we don't know 100% of what damage was done, because the machine could have easily been damaged, and there might be some problems with the programming. It was decompressed, but there's not, what's to say 100% of all that data was decompressed. Because it's very interesting that Fitch kind of pointed it out to John. He's like, any damage, even the slightest bit of damage to that suitcase that the machine was decompressed in, is like, even the slightest bit of damage could end up getting rid of terabytes of information. Even the slightest bump could end up deleting terabytes of information. So it's like, there's no telling if the machine's still at 100%, if the machine even necessarily remembers who they are. So it'll be quite interesting to see where this season goes. Like I said, Personally, I hope it's not the final season, but if they do decide to end it, I'm quite interested to see where this will all go. It's like I said, this is a battle that is like they are heavily on the losing side, and it's just like, where will they go from here? Especially the whole Shaw situation. I want to find out more about that, like whether she really betrayed them last season or not, what that whole situation is like, where she's being held, and why is it necessarily that they're keeping her alive? I feel like at this point in time, it's like you should kill Shaw, but maybe we'll get to find out more about the situation this season. So, but that's really all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.